Thanks, Katie, for joining us. This is Katie Bishop Kendrick. She is a former colleague of mine, or I guess friend, that we work together in DC. She currently is at the American Heart Association. She's the National Senior Advocacy Consultant for Voices for Healthy Kids at the American Heart Association. And today she's going to give us an overview of the summer EBT program. And we asked Katie to join us. Because our state does not implement summer EBT. We did, but now we do not anymore. And so Katie's just going to give us a brief overview of this program. And then following Katie, there will be time for questions, but we will then ask our Department of Education staff to come on and give us an overview of the summer nutrition programs as well that the Department of Ed does implement currently. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Katie, and you can begin when you're ready.
Perfect. Thank you, Jen. So hi, everyone. As Jen mentioned, I work for Voices for Healthy Kids at the American Heart Association. And basically, I provide technical assistance to our AHA staff, like Tony, that are working on certain issue areas that are within my purview, and then also to community-based organizations that are working on those issues. And one of those is Summer EBT. And it does go by two different names. So it's either Summer EBT or Sunbucks, but it's the same program. So if you hear either of those, that's what we're talking about. And so just really briefly to talk about what is this program. So basically what it does is it provides an electronic benefits transfer card. So the same card that you use for SNAP benefits. It provides those cards to families that have school-aged children and they meet the eligibility criteria. And so to be eligible, the family needs to qualify for free or reduced price meals, the SNAP program, TANF, or other approved means tested programs. So it's for families with low income that have school-aged children. And basically what it does is that over the summer, they get this card, and for each eligible child, it has $120 on it to be able to purchase foods. So it's $40 per month, and then for 3 months over the summer. And so if a family has more than one school-age children, then they would get $120 for each child that was eligible. The full benefit is paid for by the federal government, and then half of the administrative costs are paid for by the federal government. But states do need to pick up half of the administrative costs to be able to run this program, and that's the same setup that we have for SNAP right now. So with SNAP, the federal government pays the benefit and then half of the administrative costs, but states do need to chip in some of those administrative costs. And why was this program established? So as probably a lot of you on the call know, over the summer months, hunger does increase because families don't have access to school meals. And there are really great summer feeding program options out there that I guess you're going to hear a little bit more about. But they just don't have the same reach that school meals does. And so nationally, 30 million students participate in school meals, but only 2.8 million are participating in summer nutrition options. And there are lots of different reasons for that. And I'm sure your next speaker can dig into those more if you're interested. But especially in rural areas like, a lot of South Dakota, it can be hard for folks to be able to get to these programs. There might just not be enough of them. And then also the hours of the programs might make it hard for caregivers to be able to bring their kids if they're also working. So there can be a lot of challenges. But with something like Summer EBT, it's a card that they can bring to any retailer. So it can be a lot easier for folks to be able to redeem those benefits. And with Summer EBT, so this program became permanent last summer. So that was the first year of this being an official program. Before that, during the pandemic, there was something called Pandemic EBT, which was basically the same, except that the federal government was paying for everything. So they were paying for all of the administrative costs. And that was nationwide. And so we got really good information on the the impact of this program. And then even before that, there were a bunch of pilots that went on trying to address this issue of summer hunger and trying out this model to see if it's something that could be beneficial. And the research from those pilot projects did show that summer EBT reduces food insecurity, and then it also helps to improve diet quality. So it showed that it increased fruit, vegetable, whole grain, and dairy consumption and decreased sugary drink consumption. So really positive benefits there. And so this is the map that was just updated in January of all of the different states that are participating or have signaled that they want to participate. January 1st was actually the deadline to put in the notice of intent, which is why a lot of these say that they're planning to participate, but they're not officially participating yet because they have submitted that notice of intent. And then in February, they will need to submit an official plan. And then once that plan is approved, they'll be officially participating in the program. So that's why Oregon and North Carolina are that bluish green color because their plans have already been approved. And then all of the other states are in the process of either submitting their plan or it's under review. And so 38 states, all of the US territories and 5 tribal nations are all participating in the program. There are a couple of shifts from last summer. So Utah and Alabama just joined the program. They did not participate last summer. And Tennessee did participate last summer, but they're not planning to participate next summer. Their governor, right from opting in last year, had said that it was only going to be a one-year thing, so it wasn't a surprise, though advocates there have been trying really hard to keep the program in place. And so the process for joining, so obviously things could look different since we're about to have a new administration at the federal level, but the way that it has looked the past 2 years is that January 1st was this deadline for putting in a notice of intent, so saying your state plans to participate in the program. And then in mid-February, states needed to put in the actual plans to be able to operate the program, and then USDA needs to approve those plans. This past summer, there was an August deadline that was sort of a soft deadline, but it did allow states to put in an interim plan of operation and management. And when they turned in that interim plan, it allowed them to start pulling down the federal funds to administer the program. And so they could start to get those funds to be putting their official final plan together. But that was really a soft deadline and states could sort of opt in at any point. And the January 1st deadline was more of the hard deadline for that. And again, I'm not exactly sure what it will look like next year, but we're sort of anticipating if things sort of go the way they have the past 2, that you would have similar deadlines to this. And in the states, and I guess I should say, there were some states that just the program became permanent and they were just sort of kind of automatically going to opt in, and there was no real advocacy needed there. But several of these states did need real advocacy campaigns to get their states to opt in, and those have looked a little bit different. In some cases, they really were able to just put pressure on the administration, so the governor and the agency that would be implementing. And eventually get them to decide to opt in. Agencies are able to fill out these plans without legislative approval if they have the the blessing of their governor and those sorts of things. But then there have been other states where they did need to take a legislative approach to really either provide the cover for the agency or to sort of require the agency to participate. And so in those cases, they had bills saying, the state would opt into the program and they would complete the plan to be able to get approved to participate. And then there are other states that really needed to do an appropriations campaign because either the funding was the key reason why the state was the state might have wanted to participate, but they didn't have the funds to just sort of shift things around to be able to participate. So it was dependent on having that funding, or they used the appropriations campaign as sort of the lever for making the state opt in. And so in those cases, They secured appropriations for the 50% of the administrative costs, and then that was able to get the agencies to put in the plans to participate in the program. And that's my really, really quick overview of summer EBT, but I'm happy to answer questions about the program.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. I am going to go ahead and stop the recording so that folks can ask you their questions. Okay, Janelle Peterson is joining us from the South Dakota Department of Education, where she is the Child Nutrition Farm to School Program Specialist. Janelle is going to give us an overview of the current summer nutrition program options that the Department of Education administers. So Janelle, I'm going to hand it over to you.
You bet. Thanks for having me. So I have been working with child nutrition programs for about 30 years. I worked at the state agency, then I was the food service director at Rapid City area schools, and now have come back and working with the farm to school grant that we've got going. So I've provided technical assistance across the state and just have a real passion for feeding kids. So I'm going to share some additional information. I think all of you obviously are very understand or are know school lunch, school breakfast, that you understand that. But there are so many other child nutrition programs out there. One of them, of course, being summer feeding. Others are our child care and adult food program. We have snack after school. We have supper after school. We have the fresh fruit and vegetable program. And of course, our summer feeding program. So just a little background on all of that is, so all these child nutrition programs fall under DOE. The meal patterns are federally mandated. So, when we get crazy about, I don't know why this food service person or why these menus look like they do, well, they're mandated. The folks running these programs have to follow these particular meal programs. And then on top of that, they are paid reimbursement rates, right? So free, reduced, and free, reduced, and free. So that does not really have anything to do with summer feeding, because summer feeding, all meals are free. And so which is really great. Summer sites are identified through census information. So in Rapid City, for instance, I would look and see what sites I could potentially serve at, and those would be considered areas with 50% or more. And don't hold me to the 50% because I'm old and I might be wrong on that. But they are a high need area, let's put it that way. So that dictated where we could serve those meals. And one thing that we noticed was, even though we are serving in a high need area, doesn't always mean that the kids can come. Kids might not be allowed out of their homes while their parents are gone. And so places that we think we should get really great attendance, we don't always get great attendance at. So we tried to serve at as many sites as possible. We also we could do breakfast and lunch. Oftentimes we would run the summer feeding program, as a lot of schools do, in June when they're doing summer school, right? And so then we've got a large number of students potentially at the school, and we're able to provide breakfast and lunch for them. If we're going to sites of high need, We tried some breakfast, but let's be honest, kids are not going to get up for breakfast in the summer, right? They're not getting up until later. And so we really did just do our noon meal. And we did not do anything with supper, although we could have. So we went to as many sites as we could, but our numbers dropped drastically if we were not at a school. And there was not something organized going on, which is really nice because the summer, I shouldn't say that's really nice, but the summer feeding program has lots of opportunity for enrichment, which we're trying to, DOE Kansas trying to really push that. And so having somebody come during one of our meal services and provide physical fitness or read a book or just have some other type of organized activity was really great. We also would see a lot of daycare homes come over to our sites. The CACFP program, Child and Adult Care Nutrition Food Program, only applies to licensed child care facilities. So if you are a daycare home person and you're not licensed, you're not receiving any kind of reimbursement for the meals that you're feeding to those kiddos. Where if you bring them over to in the summer, bring them over to a summer feeding site, you can feed them and they're getting, a great meal, and then it's at no cost really to them. So they are able, so we did see a number of daycare homes come in and do that. Always our best attendance was at schools. But we would try to go to some of those areas of high need. While I was in Rapid City, purchased a food truck, and we had our food truck that ran through any number of sites during the summer, sometimes on different days. But just trying to make it, fun for the kids to get to come have a meal at a food truck, thinking that would again help maybe with some participation and stigma that, who comes to those sites. The other thing that we did was to also partner with Meals on Wheels. And so we were able to, if grandmas or grandpas were bringing the kids to a site, then they could also get a free meal. Otherwise, we would have to charge adults. But we partnered with Meals on Wheels to make that happen. And then we wrote an additional grant to be able to feed that bracket between 18 and whatever the Meals on Wheels number, age group was, to, again, trying to get an adult to accompany those kids so that they would come and get a meal. So, so the previous speaker was absolutely right. The meal numbers dropped drastically in the summer, and the need is still there. And so that's, yeah. Let's see, what else can I tell you? There is a Buy American mandate that is part of the meal patterns for any of the child nutrition programs, which is why Farm to School is so great for our child nutrition programs, because we certainly know that is meets that Buy American mandate. Reimbursement, again, for summer feeding. Everyone eats for free. And yeah. So what else can I tell you? What other questions do you have?
Thank you so much, Janelle. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and folks can ask some questions. Does that sound okay?
Yes.